Hey YouTube, Sam here. Well, we're in the middle of doing a bunch of stuff on this '01 Ford Escape, and I'm kind of to a point where I'm having to pull same things off to work on same things. So I'm going to throw some shots in here of me taking off this right here, which is, it was the air box and the hose that goes into the throttle body. And the first thing you need to do when doing anything when you're working on your car is unhook the battery. Really all you need to do is unhook the negative, but honestly I was doing something and the positive battery cable got in my way, and I unhooked that too. Safer than sorry, I guess. You can unhook both of them, but in theory you should only have to do the negative one. You choose to do what you want to do. Also, it looks here like this is going to have to come off, and this just has kind of a clip that sticks onto this bolt, and these stupid things here that I inevitably end up breaking. There we go. It actually came off fairly easy. You just push down on this little thing here and it pops right off. Okay. Super simple pull off. You just unscrew there, pop these two things off here, and the whole thing kind of pops out of there. Now I'm doing the water pump as well right now. You can't see down there, and to get to this back motor mount, and as you can see there is no bolts on there, and actually I can move it around. There's nothing holding that on. When I bought the car, I started noticing a noise not very long after I bought it, and it was kind of a grindy. You could kind of tell there was something happening whenever we'd start moving. Too much stuff was moving, and I could just tell. And I was hoping it was maybe motor mounts, because motor mounts are fairly easy to an extent, although this one is probably the worst one on this car. But unfortunately, the bolts that actually hold that motor mount, plus the motor mount I'm probably sure is shot, but the bolts holding this motor mount up to the top of the transmission, I believe it is, or some sort of transfer case type thing, whatever that is, those have completely stripped out. Now, in an effort to try and kind of fix it, I took American bolts that were close to the same size but a little bigger, and tried to kind of re-thread them in there. That worked for a little while and they popped right back out. So in the midst of doing that, since everything else has failed, I'm going to try these helicoils. Now I have no idea if these are the right size or not. They seem pretty close to a little bigger than what was originally in there, which is what I want. And it comes with the drill and or at least a tap. Doesn't look like it actually has a drill, so I'm gonna have to drill it out, tap it out, and stick these in there and hope for the best. We shall see. And these were on a clearance aisle at Ace Hardware, so I got a really good deal on them. Worst case scenario, they don't work, which isn't any worse than anything I've done yet. But needless to say, if you need to remove and replace this mount, this video will help you out as well. Normally, right about here, when you're getting ready to start loosening things up, you'd want to go underneath here with a jack and a 2x4 block of some sort, and carefully underneath your oil pan in a nice, safe manner, jack up the motor to take the weight off. I hate doing stuff under the oil pan, but if you use a block, everybody says that's the way to do it, and really, it's about the only way you can kind of lift your motor enough to get the weight off fairly evenly. And I would definitely suggest doing one side at a time, one motor mount at a time. But right now I'm worried about this back one here, and quite honestly, I'm going to get you down in there, going down. Now you can see right there, there's 3 bolts. Let's see, right in that area there's one there, and one over here. Those 3 bolts are what you need to take loose. Now I'm not going to put a jack underneath my oil pan right now, because it's just all hanging there anyway. and that just is going to make it easier for me to pull that out of there without it binding up. So if you were doing this, you'd want to put a jack under there. Go up and down with the jack as you need to give yourself enough room. But right now, like I said, it's just hanging there. There's nothing holding this to the motor whatsoever. And so I just need to take those 3 bolts out right there. And hopefully I'll be able to just pull that out of there fairly easy. And then I can give you a closer look at it. Those are 19 millimeter, I believe. I know the front 2 are. I'm pretty sure. I don't know why they'd make the back one different. So I'm going to pop those off of there, and I will tell you what tools I had to use when I get done. About this, I got 2 really long extensions. If you don't have those, you might be able to get down there with something and break these loose, but boy was it a bear to get them broke loose. And I used PB Blaster, or I don't think I would have got them off there because I tried it first, and without the PB Blaster, as soon as I let that sit for a while, the first one just broke right loose, but it really took a lot of force. Here's the setup I used. You got an 18 millimeter socket, a swivel joint there. I put electrical tape around my swivel joints, and actually this time I always have the electrical tape on my swivel joints. It allows them to swivel good, but doesn't let them cock over. I have a video on that. But I also electrical taped it to the actual extension here, just so I didn't lose everything at the end down there. You could even do that with the socket, because there was a couple times I pulled off and the socket didn't come with it. But anyhow, so I got 2 really long extensions. I don't know exactly how long they are. And then at first I had to use this breaker bar with that cheater bar on the end there. Over the handle, and then once I got that done, I could just use a regular ratchet. But it took a lot of force, and it really popped when you first got the first time around. So just be forewarned. Well, I got it out. Not too bad, but I did end up actually having to take the 18 millimeter with an extension and the breaker bar and all that, and unhook this part from that to get it out, because I couldn't dangle it up through everything. So whether or not you'll have to do that, I don't know, but I believe this piece I'll be able to reuse. The problem I'm having is these 3 bolts right here that I believe go into hold into the transfer case have completely stripped out. You can kind of see there's a bolt hole there, a bolt hole there, and if I could move this, you can barely see that one right there. But it appears the back hole is stripped and the bolt, as far as I can see, came out. But that one and that one over there, bolts broke off inside. So I'm going to do a whole lot of drilling and trying to back those out of there. But right now this is looking a little more bleak than I would like. Unfortunately, that was a fail. I actually broke the easy out or bolt extractor or whatever you want to call it. It snapped. I used a small crescent wrench and that didn't work, so I tried a little bit bigger one. Was tapping it with a hammer on top just to kind of, give it that little shock, hopefully, that would make it come out, and it still didn't come out. So next thing I did was push a little harder, and it actually just busted the extractor. So unfortunately that didn't work. Next step, I'm just going to take the drill and start drilling the holes out. I got to figure out what size I need. Here's one of the bigger sucks here, we'll put it that way. I can't get either of these drills down in there with a bit on it and drill that out in the car. I can get this drill in there, but this drill won't hold that big of a tip on it or bit on it, and that eventually is the size I need to get to. So now I get to figure out what I'm going to do. Alright, well that pipe right there is just keeping me from being able to use anything I can find, which I found in some of my dad's stuff, and he mainly worked in kind of machinist type stuff. Although he was an electrical engineer, he worked in a machine shop. So I'm hoping these are pretty good bits. But anyways, in some of his stuff I found these, and they got a smaller shank that actually fits in my air drill, which is a lot smaller. And I was able to drill into it with that, with this, with no problem down there. But being as this is so much longer, I'm hitting on that pipe right there. And it appears that goes back to the exhaust back here, exhaust manifold, and it also appears that I should be able to I got a tube coming up into this box, which is just kind of flapping around the no man's land here, not hooked to anything. I don't know if this has been worked on before or what, but anyways, so it appears that those will hopefully pop out from down here using a couple tubes. Yeah, in fact, I'll just do that right on camera. Right there. There it is. Just popped off from those tubes there. Yet again, this is one of those things I have no idea. I'm sure that has some sort of emissions stuff, so I don't know. If something happens to your car after you unhook things, I am not responsible. If you don't like the way I'm doing it, don't do it. But anyway, and then that tube on the back of this right here, which is like a vacuum canister of some sort. Yet again, I don't know newer car technology, but it's some sort of a vacuum canister. That tube actually has a nut that screws on there, or I believe screws on there somehow. So I don't know if it'll be easier to take it off here or actually just undo this whole thing. And then down, you probably won't be able to see it, but down here on the back of the exhaust, right there, that piece sticking across here is what that is attached to. So hopefully, well, somewhere in the midst of doing this, I have uploaded this. I've pretty much put everything all together, and I've now realized I've either lost footage or for some reason didn't get footage of this stuff here. The I pulled this off, and the tube that goes down to the exhaust manifold, and I had information about what wrench I used and everything like that, but I will kind of tell you, I believe it was a 1 1/16 inch wrench. I'm not positive though. I have a couple of bigger ones out here sitting beside the car, and I don't know which one I used. I think it was the 1 1/16. If it wasn't that, it was a 3/4, and I know that's a huge difference. That's why I'm thinking it was the 1 1/16. The other thing is, at the top is this piece here, and I just went ahead and undid the, where was it? Right here. I undid this on both sides. There's this, and then there's another one over there that you pull off. Those, I believe, are 8mm. They're either 8 or 10. Anyhow, it actually came off fairly easy. I used PB Blaster on it. It came off fairly easy off the exhaust manifold and off of here as well. And then I put it back in. It wasn't hard to get in or out, actually, with everything out of the way anyway. So, needless to say, I apologize for losing footage, but it did go well. I did pull it out, and it did end up out of my way, so I could do what I needed to do. Drill out that hole pretty easily, but to get the back one here and over here, I need to remove this. Is totally in my way, and unfortunately that appears to be going up here to this main wiring harness here. So it looks like I'm going to be undoing this and pulling this apart. It appears there's also another one, something down here I'm going to have to undo. Just a bolt. I think they're 10mm. Most everything's been either 8mm or 10mm so far. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Okay, I unplugged the harness here, but it unfortunately goes back that way and this way, but I was able to unplug this plug from here, from this thing here, and if you follow that down here, you'll see down here is the rest of the harness there. And let's see here, right behind the oil dipstick there's actually a keeper that kind of holds this whole thing in, and I just pop that out of there, and now I can, at least when I get my drill in there, I can move this around quite a bit. So I'm hoping that gives me enough movement. Hopefully this is making sense. I was able to drill these two out here. The one back, I don't know if I can get to it or not. Back in the back here, I just couldn't get to it good enough and ended up drilling it too sideways, and it just didn't work out. So anyways, I figure 2 is better than none, and at some point in time when I can actually shut this car down a little longer and maybe start pulling some parts off of it, I can try and drill and tap that back one back there on the right hand side. And I figure if I keep messing with it, I'm just going to get it to a point where I won't ever be able to fix it. And right now there's enough meat there still that I should be able to hopefully drill and tap something in there. But now's the time to go ahead and tap it, and I will try and do a little bit of that. You can see, hopefully, I got it threaded out. There, I got a good shot of the one I blew out the side of, and I just can't get to good enough when it's in the car. But anyway, I got that one threaded very well and drilled very well. This one, unfortunately, I got it threaded. I couldn't drill it deep enough to get the helicoil in, because I don't know if you can see this, but right, well, especially if I put my hand in front of the thing, right in that area. And like I said, I don't know if you can see any of this. Anyway, there, right in here, there is a bump right there, kind of right underneath where it goes. And I'm afraid to drill into that area because I believe there's some sort of bolt or screw in there. And I'm also don't want to drill all the way down in the case where I might end up with leaking issues or some other issues of things going down inside the case down there that'll harm something inside. So I have decided to stop as far as I'm willing to go, and there's a decent amount of threads, but there's definitely not near enough, which is probably why these did strip out, because I'm sure there's just not enough threads in that area where they put that motor mount to be able to have a great bite on things, I guess is what I'm trying for. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to cut that flush there. Alright, and as you can see, I cut one of these, and what I used was that right there. My air tools will really come in handy because they actually fit down in there. There's what it normally looks like, and basically I just took one coil off, and I'll try and kind of show you how I figured out where I need it. Alright, so right there you can kind of see a little shiny nick right there. That's where the coil stopped at the bottom, or went flush with this piece here. And so what I did is just zipped it right there where it was flush and just took that top coil off. It was actually pretty simple. So anyway, definitely I tried to cut them with wire clippers and a couple other things. And when I put that in, I did use Loctite on it as well. So it's up to you. It doesn't say anything about using Loctite, but I did use Loctite, and hopefully that might help a little bit. Well, it's time to start putting things back together, and obviously I can reuse this. I could have went and bought another one of these, but quite honestly, I did go to the parts store and look at it, and although it's not quite that much, about the only difference is that these little ears right here have just been squished down a little bit. They move a lot anyway. Now, I'm just going to reuse this. Quite honestly, this is not an ideal situation. Ideally, none of this would happen, but I would have been able to drill out all 3 holes, tap them, and get them all perfect. But right now, all I have is this one, and this one is got pretty short threads in it as it is. So I don't even know if this is going to work. This could all break in a week, who knows. But for right now, we're going to go with it because I need to get this car back on the road, and if it breaks down the road, I'll deal with it again. It's just a matter of throwing that in, throwing a couple bolts in. I am going to go ahead and Loctite the bolts I got. What I found were I just got some stainless steel. Yet again, it's up to you on what you want to do, but I'm hoping with the stainless steel threads and the stainless steel bolts, it's also an aluminum. I believe we're going into aluminum there as far as the transmission or transfer case, whatever that is. Hopefully I'll have less corrosion issues, so we shall see. Well, I got the bottom part of the transmission area there bolted down. Everything seems snug. Got the Loctite on it. It's been sitting for a day. Should be good. And jack handle sticking out, and I actually have a 2x4 on there. And I'm actually going under what I'm assuming is like the transfer case, kind of where the axles come together at, and jacking up on that part because I could not get the motor mount to screw into this, which is probably a good thing. That probably means that things are going back where they should be, and also that should help to get the bolts onto the back here as well. Those were kind of cocked a little bit, but anyhow, that is something that if you're doing just the motor mounts, or like I am, you'll probably have to do both to get it off and to get it on, especially if your bolts aren't busted like mine were. Well, she's all in. Put the 3 bolts on the back. Now to do that, I had to actually lower the jack for it to sit down right on the bolts, or the studs that were sticking up there. There's 2 studs in the back towards the front, and then the very back one is actually a bolt that comes on out. But to get all those right, I had to actually let it down off the jack some so that it would sit down on the plate there. So whether you had a problem like me where you had to put the helicoils in and fix these bolts, what I could anyway, or you're just taking out and replacing the motor mount, that should give you a pretty good idea of what you need to go through. Now, admittedly, you probably wouldn't have to take off all the lines for the coolant and all that kind of stuff, but boy, I tell you, it would just be easier. The starter is a definite must. I would just pull that out. It's so easy to get out, I wouldn't even bother not trying to get out. And to get that out, you kind of need to get the coolant lines out of the way too. Pretty much you're going to take the coolant out, pop your coolant lines off, pop your starter out, and you can get right to that. You might have to remove your computer electronic stuff so that you can move the wires around down there a little better, like I did, that plastic piece right there, just so you can maneuver that around better. And somebody has been in here. I noticed that is actually got like another spot down right there that's broken off where a bolt or something would have went up underneath here probably, and whoever was in here last would have gotten patient and snapped it off, trying to get it out of his way. So I have a feeling somebody was in here trying to fix this before and gave up on it and sent the car down the road. But that's neither here nor there. I own it now, and I get to deal with everybody else's problems that came before me. And if you're in that same boat, go check out a lot of my videos, because that's what the kind of cars I can afford to still be able to get a little bit newer cars. You wind up with problems. So take them a bite at a time, fix them, and you'll get there. Alright, this is Sam, Jack of all, Master of none. You all, yep, you all have a good one.